Welcome to Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas, the go-to podcast for aspiring and seasoned leaders in the quick service restaurant industry. Each week, we serve up actionable insights and proven strategies to help you lead smarter, build stronger teams, and elevate operations. Whether you're taking your first steps into leadership or refining your expertise, we're here to fuel your growth and spark big ideas. Let's dig in.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. Riley, Eric is with me here, and if you're coming from our welcome message, thanks for sticking around. We've got a good episode for you today. We're talking about a leader's mindset and kind of getting our mind ready for this awesome journey that we're about to go on together.
It's going to be a great episode.
Yes.
Not just a good episode.
Great.
If not the best.
The best?
The best
Our
one
first
yet.
one?
Yeah.
So only we can just keep getting better, right?
Possibly.
The passion.
This will not be the plateau of our episode greatness.
No.
All right.
No.
So don't tune just into this one. Tune into future ones as we just get better and better at this stuff. So, I'm glad that everyone's joining us back. Glad that you came back.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm here.
So, I think we just want to re-hit on the why you're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the passion that brings us here in order to keep that journey going around just leadership in general, right? And, finding your why and keeping your why in mind, especially as we go into 2025.
Well, and our mission, too, is, again, to kind of make every day feel like your first day on the job. That excitement that you felt before, keeping that energy up, and that's kind of that's what we're here to keep doing.
Yeah, and like I said before, right, in our intro stuff, it's possible, and I want that for everybody. And as we progress, as we get there, how fun is that going to be? Like, we're going to change this fast food world, our culture, the organization.
One leader at a time.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And it starts with us, and then we can pass it on to them.
Yeah.
So I think just as we talk about mindset, it's a really critical thing. At least it was in my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And, for a long time, a lot of it was the negative, right? Like, the fast food world can be a little bit negative. I don't know if you've experienced some things in the past.
Yeah, it can be, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is just the go of the business.
Sure.
And so taking yourself out of that negativity and realizing that this mindset matters can really help you get results too.
Yeah, and I think we allow others to influence us too with that negativity, and then we're just negative ourselves.
Just psychologically, though.
Yeah.
You kind of you mesh with your surroundings. So if your leader's being negative to you or about the business, you're going to be negative as well, and it just trickles down from there. So where do you find that break where you can kind of change that cycle?
Yeah. And I think that's the question, right? Like, where does your breakthrough really coming from?
Yeah.
Like, when do you decide that enough is enough? And like, the power of positivity can't be, understated. And for a long time, I used to look at people who were bubbly and positive all the time, like, what the heck? Like, how do you do that? Like, here I am having a bad day or a bad shift, a bad time. People then show up, right? And it's just, there's always some reason, right, to be negative. And I think today, what we're going to be able to talk about is really that self-care, that personal development, right, of like just owning our own mindset. And when we own, right, like when we truly look at our ability to own that mindset, we can control it. And I don't know if that's always been true in the past of how I at least felt around that. And I think one of the steps that we're taking and that our audience is taking right now is that they're going to invest in their own learning.
Yeah.
And the learning that we have and the ability that we have, like, there's so much more out there than there used to be. Like,
oh yeah, podcasts, internet, books, and just different. I mean, I'm sure there's even like life groups or like groups out there where you can kind of work together in these skills or in these different realms.
Yeah, and the resources are out there, and I used to feel like an island a little bit. Like, how come, nobody's investing in me? How come nobody's taking the time with me? Like, I used to kind of wait, right? Like, I'd be like, okay, I'll wait for the next thing. Especially as you progress in roles. We talked about this a little bit, but I just want to touch on it more. Like, the mindset around, like, they, like, they're not giving this to me. They didn't offer me this. Like, they didn't show me the handbook. They didn't show me, like, it just always kind of went to they.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized at one time, like, when do I start just taking a little bit of ownership of that?
It's my mindset. It's my thing.
It's my chance to learn, right? Like, who am I waiting for,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we want other people to do well, right? Like, I personally want people to do well. I'm so happy that we're sharing, the learnings in the podcast. And like you said, there's books and there's life groups and there's cohorts. And I mean, there's an endless amount. And I don't know 20 years ago when I was first becoming a leader, if that stuff was as available, or at least not as prevalent. Right.
Yeah, and it's okay to try those different things. We want you to stick around, obviously, to this podcast, but try books, try different things, and stick with something. Keep challenging yourself to stick to one thing to keep your learning going.
Yeah, I was just thinking, it just made me chuckle. Like, I think when I first started, it was even like pre-internet. Like, now everything's just a Google search away, right? Like, you can find the answer just like that. And, whether you can believe it or not is a different story. But I think just don't wait for others, right? Like, you have to own yourself. You have to own your mindset. And as we learn more about ourselves, as we kind of take that time to really reflect on who we are and who we want to be, I don't know if I took that seriously enough. Like, I don't know if the learning about that was really intact. Like, I don't know if I surrounded myself with the right people even.
So you said surrounding yourself with the right people. Actually, there's two things I want to pack there.
Yeah.
Give me a second. You said you didn't think it was as impactful back then, right? So let's start with where did it become like, okay, this needs to change, or this needs to be like, what I'm doing now isn't working anymore. I need to change my mindset, essentially.
Yeah.
Like what kind of flipped that switch, essentially? You can sum it up.
Yeah, no, it's
because I mean, it probably wasn't like a single point in time where it's like, boom, oh my gosh, I need to change my mindset. It's probably a couple years of doing the same thing that it kind of gradually made you think, okay, I need to change.
Think about a pot of boiling water, right?
Yep.
Like, you're turning it on, right? You're waiting for it to boil, and it can take a long time. And for the longest of the time, I didn't realize that somebody had turned up the heat and that I was going to be in that boiling water. What was it? Like, you can boil water and the frog won't realize it's boiling until like it's just boiling, and now the frog can't survive, right? And I think to that degree, Riley, I got to the point very slowly, and I don't even know if I realized it, right? Like, it just all of a sudden, like, one day I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm a brick wall. Like, my family life was, like, we were fighting, like, the kids were getting on my nerves. Like, the house itself was not in order. From a work standpoint, like, nothing I could do was like
making any headway or changing anything.
It just wasn't. Yeah, it just kind of, it was no fun. Like, work wasn't fun. And I have always loved what I've done. I've always loved, working in the customer service industry. I've always loved, making burgers and, having these big ideas. But I was at that point where just like, no matter what I did wasn't working. I was stressed out. I was working it felt like 30 hours a day, right? But it just really long days and long weeks. And no matter how much I pushed, right? Like, no matter how much I pushed for the results that were expected of me and our team and our organization, we just weren't making any headwinds. Like, the wind was taking me away, and I had to find like my windbreaker. Like, what's like, where the windbreaker, because like, I'm done for the wind like going through me, right?
Yeah.
So it got to a boiling point, and I've had enough. I was ready to throw in the towel. Like, I'm gonna tell you, like, there was conversations right around like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not having fun.
I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
I don't know am I the person, for this? You got some, self-doubt in there, but okay.
Yeah. And lots of stuff, I'm going to tell you, like, flat out, like, I don't know how serious, like, I can say this, but like, lots of self-doubt. Like, I just wasn't the person. I wasn't having fun. I didn't want to do it anymore. Home life sucked. Work life was hard, right? Like, it just all was going against me. And I said, okay, like, enough is enough. Like, I got to, like, if I don't do something different, it's going to like explode here, right? And that's when I made the decision, and I started having conversations like, okay, like what does that look like though? And it's funny because you would talk to like CEOs and leaders and people who you look at them and like, oh man, they have their stuff together. And I said, well, what are they doing differently that I'm not doing, right? And sometimes you look at people, like you may look at me and like, okay, cool, Eric, you're the vice president of operations. Like, that's awesome. I want your job, right? But are you willing to do what I did to get to my point, right? And I looked at other people like, okay, well, what did they do to get to their point to where they do look cool, calm, and relaxed? And a lot of them, you look at it, they're attending seminars, they're investing in themselves, they're taking the money, right, and or their time and saying, okay, I need to read and I need to do these things, and
I need to know so that I can lead.
Yeah.
Like I need to be able to kind of balance all these things and have those tools, the knowledge.
Yep.
To be cool, calm, collected, or whatever whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
and be that leader.
Right. And what was cool about that is we get promoted into these positions that we know not. Like you look, it was the best thing. Like I remember having the general manager as the assistant. I'm like, oh man, I could easily do their job, right? Like you look at the person above you and it's like, I can do that. And sure, you might be able to, but like once you're in the position, it's just different. Like you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And I was at that point to where I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Like we talked about this. I'm running a $100 million company and I don't know. I've never done this. Right?
Basically overnight kind of too, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it in future episodes, but we doubled in size at one point, like in 6 months from, 18 to 32 restaurants. And it was crazy. We were all feeling that pressure essentially. I'm sure you the most, right?
Yeah.
So that's cool to see, like, you're like, hey, I got to change something to lead, to take over and lead this big old company.
Yeah. And the best thing that I ever did is when I got my mind around, like, I'm just sick of being tired. Like, I'm sick of the chaos. I'm sick of being stressed. Like, I need to learn how to do my job. And I took that seriously. Like, I'm going to tell you, like, I read books all the time. I listened to podcasts all the time. Like, my wife made a little bit of fun of me, right? Or my kids did, at least. Because I would take leadership books, like, on vacation. I took a vacation. I remember checking out, like, 4 or 5 books. But I'm going to tell you, like, the book I read on the plane, and the book is 4 Disciplines of Execution. I think that's the first book that really helped change my mindset. So, like, if you ever had the chance, like, read it, the 4 Disciplines of Execution, amazing. It really just taught me to slow down. It taught me to just focus on one thing that you can be really successful at, show some wins, show your team some wins, and then from there you're going to start gaining momentum, like that snowball thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the snowball into an avalanche, or however that phrase goes. But it taught me to just slow down as a leader.
Instead of chasing everything all the time.
Yeah, and stop focusing on the past. And I know we said that in the beginning, right? But like, stop focusing on the past results. Like, once again, that doesn't define you. So I didn't let that chaos define me. I started investing in myself. I started taking the time to surround myself with people. And I'm going to tell you too, like, it wasn't necessarily people within the organization. It wasn't necessarily people, like physical people, but it was like listening to those podcasts or reading books by certain authors.
That's
Like,
good
it doesn't
clarification.
always have to be a person.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, because I was going to ask you, when you say like-minded people, like you're like-minded when you started, or when you were in the middle of your journey, like who is a like-minded person? But you kind of answered the question. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a in-life real person with you, but like reading some material from leadership experts, or watching their podcasts and getting their information that way.
Yeah, it did, because at first I'm like, oh, who do I even start with, right? Like, and we have people within our organization that I do rely on, right? Like, they're very good, and they're solid people. I can trust them, right? Like, I can trust them to be fair and honest with me. My wife is a huge rock of mine. Like, I trust her opinion. She's like super honest with me, right? So
super honest.
But that's what I would say. Like, no matter what, like, surround yourself with people who will tell you how it is, right? But they have the intent to make you better. Right, like, their intent is to support you and be honest with you, to make you better, to like make you feel down in the dumps, because we have the negative in our world, and I've had negativity in my world, and it was really hard to cut that out. Right, like, it might be harder to cut the negativity out than it is to find the positive, because we built relationships with people who just drag us down, or who are like, oh man, look at the weather, it's terrible. Like,
and sometimes they might not even like know they're doing it either.
They don't know.
Yeah, they don't know that they're being a bunch of party poopers.
They're not intentionally, right? And I think there's something to be said about that. Like, hey, I still want to be friends, but like, I have to find positivity in the world. And right, like, I like you, and I love you, and I cherish you, and I cherish our relationship. Like, find a way, right? An exit strategy, so to speak. But I think it's okay to be honest with people about where you want to be. It's like quitting smoking and then surrounding yourself with a bunch of smokers.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Because there's going to be temptations all the way to go back to your old mindset, your old habits of smoking. So making sure that you're surrounding yourself with those people who are there to build you up and be intentional with their positivity.
Yep. And then not just people, right? But we want to take a look at just how we're prioritizing our self-care as well, like our health. And health is two different things. Like in my opinion, there's two different categories of health, right? Like we want to look at that from a mental and a physical side. And part of my journey, it was fun, like in 2020, and COVID was terrible, right?
Yeah,
like absolutely
crazy.
terrible, like a lot of stuff, right? However your feelings are about that, that's not my point. But my point is for COVID, it kind of slowed things down a little bit. At least for me, right? Like I had the opportunity to where the restaurant teams, it was minimized. There wasn't as much, right? Like going in, like I didn't have to be at a restaurant every day per se. And I was able to kind of focus on a little bit of my mental and physical health.
You got to kind of use it as a mental break and
Yeah.
kind of figure out where, what you wanted to do. Okay.
And I use that to my advantage as far as just getting healthy, right? Because in the fast food world, right? Like, and we can touch on this probably in a different episode, right? Because there's a lot to unpack when it comes to just healthy and lifestyles and eating right and stuff like that. But I started taking exercise seriously. And it wasn't just a COVID thing. It had a little bit to do with health, right? And, making sure, especially as I got older, right? I was packing on the pounds a little bit. But I started just exercising daily. I started having those goals. And, to this day, I know I just told you, like I said, we can talk about it later, but I literally have now lost 75 pounds.
That's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
And I feel good.
Yeah.
And I feel so good. And it's helped me mentally more than I thought anything. Like mentally, I woke up with more energy, which allowed me to put more time and passion into our people. And I got to spend more time with my kids, right? Because I wasn't so physically drained from the day. So like mentally, I started feeling better too. Like all of a sudden there's rainbows and sunshine. And there's positivity in the world. And it all became because I was able to make the change of saying, hey, enough is enough. Like I shouldn't
I'm
have
sick
to
of being stressed. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sick of being that kind of down in the dumps, no energy, like you said. Like, and I think you can't be the best version of yourself when you are running on zero. When you're running empty, you can't possibly lead and inspire other people when you're in that kind of mindset. In the empty tank mindset.
Yeah.
But once you kind of, like you did, you took that break and you got your mind right and your body right. Now all of a sudden you've got energy to attack those other things. Be a leader's advocate. Spend time with your family and your kids, and you've got and you're happy and you're positive. So yeah, tell me more about kind of like that change as far as the mental and physical stuff.
Yeah, I think we take those things for granted, right? Like it's funny because as I was getting older, my shirts were getting tighter. I'm like, oh, well, I'm just getting older, right? Like I chalked it up to just like being older.
Yeah.
My position changed. I was in the restaurants constantly moving, constantly running. I think we have some of our leadership like, well, I'm on my feet all day. Okay, well, there's difference though. There's a difference between being on your feet all day and then doing physical activity and exercise.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, right, that we find some things that but have fun with it. Exercise was kind of boring, right? Like I never found anything. Yeah, I never found anything that I really truly enjoyed. I'm now into pickleball, right? Like just so you know, like
Nice.
my wife and I are constantly like joining pickleball tournaments and really enjoy it. So if you haven't found an exercise that you like or you're constantly struggling, like just keep changing until you find something you really do enjoy. And then what's cool about pickleball it's the community, it's the people. I'm around people, right, that want to be physically fit, they enjoy the game, and honestly just everyone's super nice. And I'm going to tell you, like, the older you are at pickleball, the better you are. So
Nice.
I remember thinking that we're going to be so good at this, and you're seeing people in their 60s, 70s, 80s like, oh yeah, and then just it would absolutely crush us. So just go into it with the mindset of like it's okay to lose. But I think just having the right mindset around being mentally and physically ready goes back to the self-care and personal development around having the confidence. Like, I don't care, like, wherever you're comfortable with, like, be comfortable in your skin, but it helps with the confidence side of this, because the more confident I am, like, the more I've learned, right, and the more mentally and physically I'm ready, right, the more confident that I'm able to be. And I don't want to necessarily mistake the confidence with that I'm always right, because that's
Yeah.
not it. Like,
Yeah.
we have to have some humility. And I think around the mindset part is I thought that I always had to be right, right? Like helping run the organization, helping have, whether when we had 3 restaurants, 5 restaurants, I remember like I always had to know the answers. And now I've realized that it's okay not to know, right? Like showing our team humility because I just...
And the confidence to be okay with that, you know, but the thing you mentioned was... I realize I don't need to know all the answers, but you know the people who know the answers.
Yeah. The internet, right?
Or the internet, yeah.
But no, we have, like, as an organization, and I think this can go for any team, right? Like, we have the ability in the restaurants to surround ourselves with the people who are going to help support us. And the more curious we can be, the more humility that we can have that we don't know everything. Like, I think that just builds more of that team atmosphere of like, hey, we're in this together. Like, I don't know how you felt about that transition, or like when I tell you I don't know, like maybe you can, is that cool?
No, I mean... When you say you don't know, it's let me find out. You know, it's the like, hey, I don't know the answer to that, Riley, but I'll get back to you with that answer. And it shows me, for one, that you're not going to just lie to me and make up something, right? You're honest.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of trust building, honestly, and it builds that, like you just said, like the camaraderie or the team feel that, oh, my boss isn't afraid to say he doesn't know, or you know that he was wrong, and we try this thing and we try that, like. It just builds that trust.
Yeah. And that's where the confidence just comes in, right? The confidence to be like, if you're good at your job, right? And people aren't looking to replace leaders. Like when you go from manager to leader, like that's the people I want on our team, right? Like you will not lose your job if you're an actual leader. Like if you're looking to lead others and invest in others and you're looking to build others up, like that only makes me want you on the team more.
Absolutely.
So like, don't be afraid. And I think that's where some of my stuff come in. Like I used to do what I thought others could do, but I maybe didn't want them to do, because like if I don't do it, like I'm going to lose my job.
It's not going to get done the way I want it either, or to my standard. But that's that's a part of developing your team is letting them do that. But I wanted to go back to the self-care part and the personal development, and kind of the confidence too. The whole kit and caboodle here. How do you, so for those of us who maybe are a little harder on ourselves, or maybe, not as confident, yes, these things will help us become more confident, but how do you kind of keep yourself in that check of, like, it's okay to be where I'm at, or it's okay that this is taking a very long time? Do you have any advice for that?
Oh, we have to be okay with things taking time. And we live in a world right now where it's constant gratification, at least in some way, right? Like we want to see the results now. You post something on well, not MySpace anymore, right? Like MySpace isn't a thing as much anymore.
Eric,
maybe it'll make a comeback. But we post things on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, like, and you're looking for the likes, right? Like those endorphins are like, oh man, you start getting likes, like oh, I got 7 likes, now I got 17, now I got 70. Like I don't know how many, like I don't know if I've ever had more than 8, but like when I get to 10, like right, like it makes you feel good, and it's instantaneous, and that's just not how it is when it comes to things like leadership and mindset
and that journey, that changing,
like I lost 75 pounds, but it took 5 years. I've been on a leadership journey for 20 plus years, but I've really taken it seriously in the last 4 years. But it doesn't happen overnight. So what I would say is just go back to your purpose, right? Like we talked about 2025 and the New Year's resolutions and like, what are you looking to achieve? Like, write that down, right? Like, I don't know if you like grab the lipstick and put it on the mirror where you're brushing your teeth every morning.
Vision board it.
Yeah. But it sounds silly. I get it, right? Like I used to not be that guy. Like, what are you talking about?
Now Eric's that guy.
Now I'll say it. I am that guy,
I'm gonna go home and put a vision board up.
But yeah, take it seriously and go back to your purpose. Go back to your why. And I think no matter your failures, that'll help you realign and say, okay, because a dream can easily be crushed, right? Like we have I don't know if you've ever thought about like when we started putting this podcast together, it's like, oh my gosh. And like, there's so much energy and it's like, this is gonna be awesome. And like, you start, like brainstorming 1,000 ideas. Like, I don't know, like,
but no, my brain goes wild.
Like a mile a minute. And then all of a sudden, like, that starts to wear off, right? Like, and not this one. Like, I'm still like, we're on episode 1, right? So like, hopefully it didn't wear off yet.
No.
But you get super excited in the beginning of a dream.
Yeah.
And then as we kind of go through the daily grind, right, like those things kind of go to the side and the everyday stuff starts to happen. And we start focusing on maybe those negative things or the reasons that it wasn't successful instead of allowing those pitfalls to be the catapult of the future, right? And say, okay, let's learn from those and let's do better.
Instead of, okay, well, can't do it. Or whatever, comes to your mind where I'm not good enough or whatever the case may be, reminding yourself of the why or that vision board and just keep pushing.
Yeah. It does. It's super helpful. And I think just be okay with where you're at, right? Knowing that you have a dream or a goal or a vision to do better and just keep investing in yourself and keep believing in yourself because people will believe in you, but not as much as you can believe in yourself. And I think that just rings true, right? And take it day by day and realize that you will get to where you want to be. It's just a matter of how much work and effort we put in, and you can't let those little things stop you.
Yeah, I think, just from today, we've talked about the self-care, personal development, investing in your learning, and surrounding yourself with those like-minded people and finding that support network to kind of help propel your mindset and build that confidence. So thanks for joining us this week, guys. We are super excited to be here, super passionate about the podcast, Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. Join us next week for some more leadership conversations with Riley and Eric.
Thanks for joining us on Buns, Burgers, and Big Ideas. We hope today's episode inspired fresh ideas for your leadership journey. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and keep learning with us as we continue to explore leadership in the QSR world. Until next time, take care and lead well.